Every year I decide to have a little fun and come up with a list of 10 predictions that often aren't very obvious or popular in the following year. I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but as a lifelong investor, I believe that some things have a higher chance of happening than others. So without any further ado, here are my 10 predictions. Number 1, S&P 500 will breach 5,000. Last year in February, I wrote an article, "You can make money in stocks with your eyes closed." The S&P Index was at that time 3,800 and it's now over 30% higher. So what was the source of my conviction? I simply realized that the S&P 500 returns had become a very definition of inflation and people stored their wealth in the index. In other words, if the money supply increases 20% a year, so does the index. Under those circumstances, expecting a 10% gain from the current levels is rather conservative. Number 2. The Fed will not raise rates significantly. I'll make the bold prediction that the rates will not go up, and even if they will, the Fed will hike rates only marginally. The global financial system is hugely dependent on money printing, and without the stimulus, it would collapse. The only option for the central bankers is hyper-printing from here, while keeping the interest rates very low. Number 3. US inflation will exceed 10%. Officially, US inflation hit 6.8% in November, which is a 39-year high. However, the real inflation rate is much higher. When central bankers pump trillions of dollars into the economy, they simply can't expect any different outcome. The more money is in circulation, the less they're worth. So don't be gullible. Get out of cash, sell your bonds, and buy hard assets like the S&P 500 Index or Bitcoin, because the inflation will continue to rise to double digits. Number 4. Bitcoin will hit 100,000. Coupled with the record high inflation, we are going to another dimension with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's adoption is growing at a 113% rate and is the fastest adoption of any technology in recorded history. It's double the speed of the internet growth in the 90s. I think we can anticipate a $100,000 price by the end of 2020. Number 5. The housing market will have another double-digit gain. In the third quarter of 2021, home prices in the US posted their largest increase ever, rising by 18.5%. I predict we'll see another year of double-digit gains in 2022. While many experts think it's a bubble, I'm not so sure. It's important to realize that people buy real estate to hedge against devaluating currencies. Number 6. Central banks will issue CBDCS. I'm no fan of the central bank digital currencies. They are going to be a disaster for our privacy. Unfortunately, it seems that the walls are closing in. According to the CBDC track, almost every government on earth has started developing its own digital currency, and some will issue their own this year. Number 7. More countries will adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. When people face a choice between the CBDCs and Bitcoin, they'll realize that with Bitcoin, they'll still be able to control their own money. Some governments are starting to understand it. For instance, El Salvador became the first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender instead of developing its own digital currency. It's almost inevitable that more countries will follow suit in 2022, especially those suffering from hyperinflation and ruined economy. Number 8. Meetings will move to the Metaverse. The term Metaverse jumped into everyone's mind with Facebook announcing the decision to rebrand their corporate name to Meta. We often think about the Metaverse as something in a distant future, but in reality we are closer than we think. The Metaverse has a lot to offer. This year I predict virtual meetings will start moving from 2D to 3D cameras with digital avatars. Number 9. Tesla stock will surge above $1,500. Tesla is not only the most valuable automaker, but it is more valuable than the following 5 top automakers combined. Yet I believe that Tesla stock will reach $1,500 in 2022. Recently, the deliveries estimates increased to 1.5 million cars for this year. Coupled with the progression on the Tesla bot and FSD beta, Tesla stock is gift that keeps on giving. And finally, number 10. Lockdowns will not end this year. It's been almost 2 years since the first wave of lockdowns. In the beginning, our politicians told us they just needed 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Then they told us the restrictions would last only a couple of months until we get the vaccine, and then we return to normal. Well, here we are almost 2 years later, entering another wave of lockdowns and restrictions. Since our leaders are dishonest, I predict our freedom of movement and assembly will continue to get restricted, and the lockdowns won't end this year. In conclusion, although these predictions are daring and should be taken with a grain of salt, I believe they're all entirely plausible. Also, it never hurts to be prepared and capitalize on the outcome. Or as Louis Pasteur said, fortune favors the prepared mind. So here's to the great 2022.